My beloved child. Listen carefully now, because this message was never meant to reach you this way, and yet here you are, exactly where you need to be. There is a silence around you that feels normal, almost comforting, but that silence is not empty. It is crowded with whispers, glances, unfinished sentences, and truths that stop mid-breath when you enter the room. The person you love deeply has mastered the art of smiling while hiding storms behind their eyes. They know how to speak about everything except the one thing that matters. Last night was not loud. It was not dramatic. There were no scenes, no witnesses you could point to. That is why it hurts more. Because while you believed they were resting, reflecting, or simply being alone in the harmless way people often are, something far heavier was unfolding in quiet corners you were never invited into. Everyone else sensed it. Everyone else connected the dots. And you were protected from the truth not out of kindness, but out of fear. Fear of what would happen if you finally saw what they have been carrying alone, what they chose to face without telling you, and what they decided you did not deserve to know yet. Stay with this moment. Do not rush. The biggest revelations never arrive with noise. They arrive with stillness that suddenly feels unbearable. Now let me take you deeper, because this did not begin last night, even though last night changed everything. For a long time, the person you love has been dividing their world into two parts. One part includes you, warmth, familiarity, and the version of themselves they want to keep alive. The other part is colder, quieter, and filled with thoughts they never voice out loud. They have been telling people they are fine. They have been convincing others that solitude is strength. But those closest to them noticed something shift recently. A delay in replies. A different tone in their voice. A heaviness behind words that used to flow freely. When last night came, they chose not to reach out. Not because they did not think of you, but because thinking of you made the truth harder to carry. They were by their own side, sitting with memories, regrets, and decisions that cannot be undone by simple apologies. While you slept, or scrolled, or trusted that everything was normal, they were confronting something that changed how they see themselves. Others know because humans sense pain before it is spoken. You were left out because you are not just anyone. You are the one whose reaction would matter too much. Here is the part that will sting, but it must be said slowly. The bitter truth is not about betrayal in the obvious sense. It is about choice. Last night, they chose to be alone with something they should have shared with you. That choice created a line, invisible but powerful. On one side of that line is the version of love that includes honesty, vulnerability, and shared weight. On the other side is a version of love that hides, delays, and protects itself at your expense. The people around them saw the exhaustion afterward. They saw the way their shoulders dropped, the way their eyes avoided certain questions. Someone even tried to mention you, casually, just to see their reaction. And in that reaction, everything was confirmed. A pause that lasted too long. A breath taken too sharply. A subject changed too quickly. That is how everyone else knows. Not because they were told, but because truth leaks through the smallest cracks. You are still standing outside that line, believing that love always tells you when something matters. But this time, love chose silence. Do not misunderstand this silence as indifference. That would be easier to accept. This silence is heavy because it comes from conflict. They are afraid that once you know what last night really meant, you will never see them the same way again. They are afraid you will realize that the distance you felt recently was not imaginary. It was a preparation. A slow emotional cushioning for a reality they have not yet found the courage to speak. They keep telling themselves they will explain it later, when things are clearer, when they are stronger, when the timing feels right. But timing is a convenient excuse when the truth feels sharp. The bitter part is that every moment they delay, the truth grows heavier, and your innocence becomes more fragile. Everyone else watches this and wonders how long you will remain the only one who still believes the old version of the story. They are not laughing at you. They are worried for you. Because once you see what was faced alone last night, you will understand that some doors close quietly, without arguments, without goodbyes, just with decisions made in solitude. So listen closely as this part ends, because this is where your awareness begins to shift. You are not weak for trusting. You are not foolish for believing. But you are standing at the edge of a realization that cannot be unseen. The person you love deeply is carrying a truth they think will protect you if hidden, but in reality, it is changing the shape of your connection. Last night was a turning point, not because of what happened externally, but because of what they accepted internally while being by their own side. From this moment on, pay attention to what feels different. The pauses. The softness mixed with distance. The care that feels slightly restrained. Nothing is accidental anymore. This is only the beginning. What comes next will demand clarity, courage, and a level of emotional honesty that neither of you can avoid forever. Stay present. The truth is moving closer, whether they are ready or not. My beloved child. Something has shifted since the moment you heard the echo of that hidden night, even if you cannot fully explain it yet. You may still be breathing the same air, living the same routine, and seeing the same face, but your intuition has already started whispering. This is because truth has a gravity of its own. Once it begins to move toward you, nothing can stop it. The person you love deeply has been waking up with a weight on their chest that words refuse to carry. They replay that night again and again, not because it was dramatic, but because it was decisive. They remember the silence around them, the way time slowed, and the realization that something inside them crossed a line that cannot be uncrossed. They did not reach for you afterward, not because they forgot you, but because they were afraid of how clearly you would see them if you did. Others noticed how carefully they now choose their words, how conversations end just a little sooner, how laughter feels practiced rather than natural. These are not coincidences. These are aftershocks. And while you stand there believing love will always announce its changes out loud, the reality is unfolding quietly, right in front of you. Let me be honest in a way no one else has dared to be with you. That night forced them to confront a version of themselves they were hoping would never surface. It exposed doubts they have been hiding even from themselves. They questioned their strength. They questioned their choices. They questioned whether the life they are living still matches the person they are becoming. And in that questioning, you appeared in their mind not as a comfort, but as a mirror. A mirror that would reflect every crack, every hesitation, every fear they are not ready to explain. That is why they chose solitude. Because solitude does not ask questions. Solitude does not require answers. Everyone else sensed this inner collapse because people close to pain can feel when someone is standing at the edge of change. You were kept away because your presence would have forced them to speak, and speaking would have made the truth real. Silence felt safer. Distance felt manageable. And so the gap between what you believe and what is happening quietly grew wider, even though no one said a word. Here is the bitter truth growing sharper now. Love does not always break through betrayal. Sometimes it fractures through avoidance. Last night was not about another person, another place, or another obvious mistake. It was about an internal decision that shifted their loyalty away from shared vulnerability and toward self-protection. They decided, even if unconsciously, that facing something alone was easier than risking your reaction. That decision did not end love, but it altered it. It created a version of connection where you are cherished, but not fully included. Where you are loved, but not fully trusted with the hardest truths. Others can see this shift because they are not emotionally invested the way you are. They notice the emotional guard going up. They notice the careful management of conversations. They notice how your name is spoken with affection mixed with hesitation. You feel it too, even if you push the feeling away. That subtle sense that something is being withheld. That instinct that tells you not everything is being said. You are not imagining it. You are sensing the consequences of a night that redefined the emotional boundaries between you. Do not blame yourself for what you did not know. That night was never about your failure or your absence. It was about their inability to confront vulnerability in real time. They are carrying guilt now, not because they did something unforgivable, but because they know the longer this stays hidden, the more painful it will be when it finally surfaces. They are caught between two fears. The fear of telling you and losing the version of you that still believes everything is okay. And the fear of staying silent and slowly eroding the trust that makes love feel safe. This is why their energy feels inconsistent. Warm one moment, distant the next. Present, then suddenly unreachable. They are trying to keep everything stable while standing on shifting ground. Everyone else senses the instability. You are the only one still standing on faith alone. And faith, as powerful as it is, becomes fragile when it is unsupported by truth. As this part closes, understand this clearly. You are approaching a moment where your awareness will no longer be optional. The distance you feel is not meant to punish you. It is meant to prepare you. The person you love deeply is not hiding because they do not care. They are hiding because they are afraid of the transformation that honesty will trigger in both of you. But truth does not wait forever. It has a way of surfacing through tone, behavior, and emotional absence long before words are spoken. Stay alert. Stay grounded. What was faced alone last night has already started reshaping your connection. And the next revelation will not come gently. It will come with clarity that demands you finally see what everyone else has been seeing all along. My beloved child. There is a moment in every deep connection when silence becomes louder than words, and you are standing inside that moment right now. The air between you and the person you love has changed its texture. It feels heavier, slower, almost cautious. They are measuring every reaction, every pause, every glance, because they are afraid one wrong move will expose what they are still trying to keep buried. Last night did not end when the sun rose. It followed them into today. It sat with them in every conversation. It shaped the way they looked at you, not with less love, but with more restraint. Others can see this restraint clearly. They see how carefully they protect certain topics. They see how quickly they redirect conversations when emotions get too close. You, however, are still offering trust freely, unaware that the ground beneath that trust has already shifted. Here is what no one has told you directly, because it feels too heavy to place in your hands. That night forced them to accept a truth about themselves that they were hoping would fade with time. It did not fade. It solidified. They realized something about their limits, their desires, or their fears that does not fit neatly into the story they have been telling you. This realization did not make them cruel. It made them conflicted. They now live in a space where affection exists alongside avoidance. Where care exists alongside secrecy. They want to protect you from pain, but they also want to protect themselves from accountability. This internal tug-of-war is exhausting them. It shows in their eyes. It shows in the way their energy drops when you get emotionally close. Others recognize this exhaustion because they have seen it before. You have not, because you are still seeing them through the lens of who they were, not who they are becoming. The bitter truth deepens here. Love alone does not guarantee transparency. Sometimes love convinces people that hiding is kindness. They tell themselves that silence is mercy. That delay is protection. But what is really happening is a slow erosion of emotional equality. You are giving honesty while receiving edited versions of reality. You are offering presence while they are rationing access to their inner world. Last night marked the moment they realized they could survive holding something back from you. That realization is powerful and dangerous at the same time. Powerful because it gives them control. Dangerous because it creates distance that grows without being noticed. Everyone else sees the imbalance forming. They sense that you are giving more clarity than you are receiving. They see how the connection is starting to tilt, subtly but steadily. You might feel an urge to question yourself right now. To wonder if you are overthinking. To tell yourself that love does not always need explanations. But understand this clearly. Your discomfort is not coming from imagination. It is coming from misalignment. When two people are fully open, energy flows freely. When one person starts withholding, the other feels it instinctively. The reason you feel unsettled is because something important was processed without you. A decision was emotionally rehearsed without your presence. You are now interacting with someone who has already crossed an internal bridge while you are still standing on the other side. They are ahead of you in awareness, and that gap is what feels so confusing. Others recognize it because they are watching from outside. You are inside it, still trying to make sense of the shift. As this part comes to a close, take this truth with you. You are not losing love. You are being invited to see it more clearly. What happened last night created a future conversation that cannot be avoided forever. The longer it is delayed, the louder the silence will become. Pay attention to patterns, not promises. Notice consistency, not reassurance. The truth you have been shielded from is not meant to break you, but it will change how you stand in this connection. And once you are ready to see it, you will realize that your clarity was always more powerful than their secrecy. The next part will bring you closer to the moment when everything hidden begins to surface. My beloved child, the tension you feel now is not accidental, and it is not temporary. It is the natural pressure that builds when truth is held back for too long. The person you love deeply is walking through their days with a quiet alertness, as if they are constantly guarding something fragile. They listen more than they speak. They respond instead of initiate. They keep things light when emotions try to go deep. This is because last night did not just give them clarity. It gave them fear. Fear of losing control over the narrative they are still trying to manage. Others see this vigilance clearly. They notice how carefully emotions are handled, how certain questions are avoided, how moments that should feel intimate now feel slightly distant. You are still inside the connection, feeling it shift but not fully understanding why. That is the hardest place to be. Close enough to sense the change, but far enough to doubt your own perception. Let me take you closer to the center of this truth, because this is where everything becomes real. That night, while they were by their own side, they made peace with something they never wanted to admit out loud. It may not have been a single action. It may not have been a dramatic event. It was a realization. A recognition that some part of their life, their emotions, or their future does not align the way it once did. They sat with this realization alone because acknowledging it in front of you would have forced immediate consequences. Consequences they are not ready to face. By staying silent, they bought themselves time. Time to adjust. Time to prepare. Time to decide how much of the truth you can handle without everything changing at once. Others picked up on this shift because when someone starts preparing emotionally, it shows. Their energy becomes cautious. Their affection becomes measured. Their presence becomes selective. You are the only one still experiencing the relationship as if that preparation is not happening. This is the bitter part that cuts the deepest. You are loving them in the present, while they are already living partly in a future shaped by a truth you do not yet know. That creates an imbalance that no amount of affection can fix. They are not lying to you directly. They are editing reality. They are choosing which parts of themselves you are allowed to see. They believe this protects the connection. But in reality, it shifts the power dynamic. They hold knowledge you do not. They carry certainty you are denied. Everyone else sees this because they are watching from a place of emotional neutrality. You are inside the bond, still trusting the version of honesty that once existed. This is why moments feel slightly off. Why reassurance does not fully settle your heart. Why you feel close, yet strangely alone at the same time. Do not mistake their gentleness for openness. Right now, gentleness is being used as a shield. They are being kind so you do not ask harder questions. They are being attentive so you do not notice the gaps. They are being consistent so you do not sense the internal distance growing. But truth has weight, and it bends behavior no matter how carefully it is hidden. You might notice delays where there used to be eagerness. Neutral responses where there used to be emotion. A sense that something important is being postponed. These are not flaws in love. These are signs of avoidance. And avoidance always points to something unresolved. Others already understand this. You are being slowly guided toward it without being told directly. As this part ends, understand this one thing clearly. You are not behind. You are being paced. The person you love is unconsciously preparing you for a truth they believe will change everything once spoken. They think silence will soften the impact. They think time will make it easier. But silence does not erase truth. It only reshapes how it arrives. What they faced alone last night is still moving forward, still influencing their choices, still shaping your connection. The moment when words replace silence is coming closer. And when it arrives, you will finally understand why everyone else seemed to know something you did not. My beloved child. You are reaching the point where intuition becomes impossible to ignore, because patterns are repeating themselves too clearly now. The way they hesitate before answering simple questions. The way their warmth arrives in waves instead of staying constant. The way they sometimes look at you as if they are measuring how much you can handle. This is not confusion. This is calculation. Not the cruel kind, but the fearful kind that comes from knowing a truth cannot stay hidden forever. Last night gave them certainty, and certainty changes behavior. They are no longer wondering if something needs to be addressed. They are wondering how long it can be delayed. Others sense this shift because certainty has a distinct energy. It makes people quieter, more controlled, less spontaneous. You feel it because your heart is still responding honestly while theirs is guarding an internal conclusion you have not yet been told about. This is where the story deepens, and it may hurt to hear it framed this way. When someone processes something alone that should have been shared, they create an emotional head start. They grieve privately. They accept privately. They adjust privately. By the time the truth reaches you, they are already steps ahead. That is what makes the revelation feel so unbalanced when it finally comes. Last night was the beginning of that private processing. They sat with the idea that certain expectations might change. Certain promises might feel heavier. Certain futures might look different than the ones you imagine. They did not cry to you. They did not explain themselves to you. They carried it alone and came out calmer, but also more distant. Others noticed the calm immediately. You noticed the distance. Both observations are connected. Here is the bitter truth you have been circling around without naming it. Love can survive many things, but it struggles when truth is delayed long enough to create separate emotional timelines. Right now, you and the person you love are no longer standing in the same moment. You are present. They are slightly ahead, already adapting to an internal shift you have not been invited into. They still care. They still show up. But something fundamental has changed. They are no longer reacting to situations as they happen. They are responding based on what they already know is coming. That is why their answers feel careful. That is why reassurance feels incomplete. That is why closeness feels conditional. Everyone else can see this because they are watching the interaction without emotional attachment. You are inside it, feeling the imbalance without yet knowing its source. Do not let this awareness turn into self-doubt. This is not about your worth. This is about their fear of confrontation with honesty. They believe they are protecting you from pain, but in reality, they are protecting themselves from witnessing your reaction. They are afraid that once you know what last night truly represented, you will no longer fit into the version of the future they are preparing for. That fear keeps them silent. That fear keeps them gentle but guarded. That fear keeps them close but not fully open. You are sensing all of this because emotional bonds do not lie. They transmit information even when words are withheld. The discomfort you feel is not meant to weaken you. It is meant to wake you up. As this part closes, understand the gravity of where you stand now. You are approaching a point of clarity that cannot be postponed much longer. The person you love deeply cannot carry this truth alone forever without it reshaping the entire connection. Silence has an expiration date. The longer it lasts, the more disruptive the truth becomes when it finally arrives. What happened last night set this process in motion. The signs are already visible. The energy has already shifted. The next part will bring you closer to the moment when avoidance turns into exposure, and when the truth they have been carrying alone begins to demand a voice.